Hi, welcome to Comics with Gratitude. And today we have the very lovely, wonderful, talented Adam Bloom. Adam, I have your book, Finding Your Comic Genius. I
Right,
attended
I
your
hope it's signed.
masterclass.
I hope it's signed.
It is signed with a wonderful note,
What
and
do I
it
write?
says, Dear Greta, thanks for rushing your co-lunch just for me. Remember, we had to
Oh,
get back during break time, and
yes.
then I had a chat with you, and then I had to rush back because you had a timeline where we had to get back. But thank you so much for agreeing to be on this podcast. I mean, you have an incredible career being, a comedian. One can only dream of doing something artistic with their lives, and then making an actual living with it, and then being like, shaping the comedy scene in the UK where you're from, and internationally going to Edinburgh Festival, doing your solo shows, you're award-winning comedian. You won the Stella Artois Award. You've been to Melbourne Festival. Like you've I wouldn't say you've been around the block, but you've done it all. It seems like, and then you write for world famous comedians as well.
That's
I'm
true.
not going to name drop now, but I know you do, and
Uh, I
I'll
didn't
leave
win
it to
the
you if you can share that.
I didn't win the Stella Artois Award. I got nominated for it. Unfortunately, I didn't win it. If anyone says something,
Okay, but still, you've been nominated for awards. So I think it's awesome to be considered amongst your peers when you're doing work like that. And today we want to just get straight into it. Obviously, we want to get to know a bit about you and your process. And you've just done the Edinburgh Festival, but this I really want to peel back the layers of what it means to be a comedian for someone like you. And also, if we can talk about this, I guess, tenuous link between being a comedian and dealing with your mental health. So it's a lot. Um, let's get straight into it.
okay.
Can you first tell me, how did you get into comedy?
I wanted to be a comedian when I was 9 years old. It was my dream.
Okay.
And then I got sacked from a job. I was a cocktail bartender. I got sacked, and I got home and I said to my girlfriend, who I didn't live with, I said I just lost my job, and she said, "Oh, I've got some more bad news," and she dumped me. So I was living with my mum. She was going to dump me anyway. She didn't dump me because I'm unemployed. So I was living with my mum, no money, no job, no girlfriend, and I thought, you know what? Now's the time to do that thing. And it hit me. It hit me like a lightning bolt in the head. I can remember where I was. I was by my bedroom door on the inside, and I just went, now is the time to do the thing that you've wanted to do since you were 9 years old. It was a lightning bolt. It really was like I got hit with a lightning bolt. And
How old were you then?
20, just nearly 23. So 5 days after my 23rd birthday, I did an open mic, and it went well. And then about 20 months later, I was full time, and that was 30 years ago. So I've been full time 28 years.
You keep it up. How do you find, how, like, you make it sound easy. It's the dream, isn't it? If somebody would look at you and go, I want to do that. I want to go play around the world. I want to be in the biggest festivals and, be nominated for an award. I want to rub shoulders with like world renowned comedians, and they call me. I know they WhatsApp you for like advice, and you're writing some of their stuff. I mean, it's it's a long journey, but how do you get there?
Well, there's no destination. So it's, I mean, to enjoy a creative life. I mean, there are times when I've gone on stage for the third time in an evening, and I'm a little bit bored of my own voice. But when you look at an audience that are, like when I do 3 shows a night, I try and vary my material, so I'm not saying the same thing again and again. But so that's good for you if you don't repeat the same. If you do 2 sets that are similar, make sure the third one's almost completely different, or at least 75% different, so it feels fresh. But when you look at an audience who paid money and they're sitting down, they're looking at you, I'm grateful for that. And I'm, when I see their faces when I walk on stage, they're like, okay, it could be their first time in watching comedy, right? So they're like, okay, let's go. That excites me. So I can deliver stuff like it's the first time I've done it, because it's the first time they've heard it. I've never worded it like that before. That's actually quite a good way of putting it. If it's the
Yeah,
first time they've heard it, I can say it like it's the first time I've said it. And I'm looking at
yeah.
them thinking, you have the power or the potential to convert somebody to a fan of live comedy from your performance. They can watch you and they can come up to you afterwards and go, I've never been to comedy before and I loved it. And then you could they could be going to comedy again and again and again on the back of that one experience. Because if you had a bad experience watching comedy, if the people next to you were talking, or the comedian wasn't very good, the lighting was bad, sound was bad, you might go, I didn't enjoy it. But if you're the comedian responsible for converting somebody to being a fan of live comedy, that's a beautiful thing. So I always look out there and think there's someone out there in the room who could be really enjoying this more than I'll ever know. And that excites me.
So it's almost like having someone fall in love with you by falling in love with yourself. If you're doing it for the first time in front of them, they've never heard it. And it's like you get to tell that story of who you are.
Yeah, I don't like the phrase falling in love with yourself because that sounds like narcissistic. I fall in love with the material. I fall in love with the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm telling something for the 100th time, if the audience is enjoying it, it's fresh to me. Each show is a unique experience, just like every person you meet has a unique personality. Every show has a different vibe to it of some description. Of course, some shows are more forgettable than others, but every time I'm on stage, there's a flavor, and that flavor is unique. It might be similar to other flavors, but it's still unique. And I celebrate that flavor. And I sometimes a gig is so magical, you'll remember it forever. And that doesn't happen.
When was your first 1 hour special? When did you achieve that?
August 1996.
1996.
Yeah. And in 1999, I did 2 hours. I did the 2
My
hours.
goodness. And how has that changed? How have you changed from the boy who was doing it in 1996 for your first 1 hour versus you now? You've just returned from Edinburgh Festival. I know you've mentioned that you've done 9 nights. You've done 9 1-hour shows.
Yeah,
and on top of that,
go on.
And you're teaching the masterclass as well.
Yeah, I had the most intense 9 days of my life last week.
I don't think people really understand, because I attended your masterclass, and I must say you give 200% of yourself. You are sharing. You've written so much in this book about the techniques and everything that you have learned, and how you've broken it down in those concepts, which just kind of, when I read it, I just went, oh, this is what I experienced on stage. And it seemed like you were going through the mind of a comedian from the start of their journey to, the middle, the end. And your master classes are pretty long. And it's very tiring. Looking at how you conduct it. We're getting a lot out of it. And then to think that after that, you have to go and get on stage to do a show.
It's exhausting. So what I do is I lie down for 45 minutes and shut my eyes and just reset. But in Edinburgh, there were smaller classes. The one year was 12 or 14 people. We cap it at 12 people, but I think we oversold out one because more people wanted to come. Okay, we'll do 14 people then. But the point is, it is exhausting. Edinburgh, there were much smaller classes though, because I was doing 9. That was a bit ambitious. But at the end of it, the first night in Singapore, I flew into Singapore. I stayed up all night in England, slept on a daytime flight in London to Singapore, woke up in your morning, trying to pretend it was my morning, and then had one night off, and then did a 7-hour masterclass, and then a show that night, and I had 45 minutes to sleep between the two. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Oh my goodness!
But you find the energy by eating properly and getting that sleep before the class. I can't drive a car. I did one where I drove afterwards because it was near where I lived, and I couldn't drive. I had to pull over. Couldn't drive. I could drive.
Doesn't sound very safe.
It's going to be dangerous.
Yeah. And the thing is, okay, you are paying for the art, right? There are moments where there are obviously highs. There are, times when you have a lot of work coming in a short amount of time, and then you just have to squeeze it in. But the energy that it takes almost, it makes me feel like it makes me think about how I would, organize myself. And sometimes it takes a certain manic type of energy to be able to throw yourself in something, concentrate and focus very hard, and then after that switch off. And I wonder, so I've read this, and I'm not pointing fingers at you, but I even at myself, and I think comedians, like I've just started on this journey, and I've read this research, which is really interesting. So they've done studies about this, right? And comedians seem to have a higher percentage of trauma, or they would have more mental health issues. And this is done by this is a study that's conducted by the University of Oxford. So let me have a look at it. Let me just okay, hang on a second. Okay, so comedians are more likely to experience mental illness than the general population. And I wanted to explore this about how comedians use humor to cope, like Stephen Fry, who's opened up about his struggle with bipolar. Sarah Silverman talked about her struggles with like depression and anxiety. Robin Williams as well, God bless him, rest in peace. They work long hours, travel frequently, and also I think the sheer amount of, now we see a lot of the success that you're facing, but surely there have been criticism, there have been rejection, there have been going up on stage, there's been a lot of no's that you had to take in terms of like people maybe not laughing at your joke or feeling like, they're judging you on your performance that night, So I feel like it's a lot more than the general population of what comedians would put themselves through. Do you know what I mean? Why would you do that? Like, why would you have to put yourselves on stage for people to clap and be funny?
Because we're
do you know what I'm saying? Like,
we're addicted to the laughter and the applause. We're addicted to being told we're good, and it's such an intense hit. A whole room of people looking at you, and it's all on you. And I love that pressure. I love the fact that you can't afford to mess up because there's so many people watching you. And even a small gig, you can't afford to mess up. You can't afford to mess up because there are people who paid to be there watching you. So I love that pressure. But the mental health thing, I always thought that the mental health came before doing the comedy. I think people with mental health problems became comedians. Not doing comedy gives you mental health problems.
Yeah.
We've got a chicken and egg thing here now. I think that an odd childhood is likely to provoke someone to want to be a comedian. That something a little bit damaged in your childhood that causes you to want that to happen. That constant tension. And I don't think it's a case of that you weren't loved. People say, that you didn't get enough love as a child. You need it from an audience, and they always say it in quite a cool way. Like, if that's true, why don't you have empathy for me? They go, you didn't get enough love. That's what it is. You're getting love. Okay, well, maybe I could get some love from you now then, if you think that's the problem. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit insensitive. Like, if you think someone's in a job because they didn't get enough love, you should say it in a concerned way.
I feel like it's very interesting because the weird thing is, as I dig into this, obviously I'm curious about it because I'm drawn to being in comedy. I'm drawn to talking about stuff that hurts me most, like, naming it, and like, so that, when you name it, you tame it, and then there's no shame in it. You know what I mean? Where something that is in that deep dark corner, you're just like, hey, I'm going to out you before you turn my life upside down. I'm going to take this thing and transform it and own that story. And it's interesting how they say, like, not only do comedians also suffer, I guess, experience mental illness more than the general population. They have an unusual this is all research, an unusual personality structure, which might help to explain the facility for comedic performances, that comedians are known to show an unusual personality structure. And that means like they suffer more traumatic events of their childhood, which is what we're talking about. So I'm just wondering whether that's, that little diagram is like traumatic childhood, personality that fits, being on stage and wanting to, I guess, sort of get validation, and then perfect storm when something happens where, like, for you, you lost your job and your girlfriend dumped you, and there's like everything comes together and crystallizes in that moment where it's like, now it makes sense. I found my purpose,
That starting the job was just big at rock bottom. That was the perfect time. But But the build up to that, I had some trauma in my childhood, and I think having your brain slightly dented very young might make you see the world differently. You've the package has been dented right at the beginning, and the goods inside are slightly damaged. And by being damaged, it's not only my theory, you look at the world differently because you're slightly your perspective has been twisted slightly. I do think the mental health comes before the job, not the other way around. It is hard doing flights on your own, sitting in hotels. I mean, when I do a corporate event, everyone's having fun apart from me because I'm nervous that I'm about to go on stage to 500 people in a badly set up room. So I spend a lot of time being the only unhappy person in the room. And that's not good for you. That's not good for you because, you arrive at this place where people have waited all year for this event and they're all dressed up and they're even dressed in, oh, this is amazing. I'm in heaven. I'm, my 40th birthday party or a company's big do and they're celebrating something and they've had this amazing year. And you're sitting in the corner just going, oh, this is going to be awful. And that's not fun. And I think long flights, I flew to Singapore and back on my own. I had no one to talk to on most flights. So that can be quite lonely. I think, car journey. I mean, I hate long drives. I'm turning down work now, so I don't have to do long drives anymore. I've had enough. Just that. I mean, I'm going to start contradicting myself now. Those long drives on your own are not good for your mental health because you're thinking and you've got nothing else to do. Music, podcasts, that's it. But you're focusing on the road and you're having thoughts. And I find life quite difficult on my own in a car for 4 hours in a day. Yeah, that's not good.
So I kind of feel like tracing it back to, obviously the traumatic childhood event. I don't know if you can share like maybe something that has happened that has shaped you differently.
I saw a very violent from one man to another man. I was related to both of them, but there was blood involved and hospital involved, and that's like that was pretty full on. And I got bipolar, as you know, and they say that often bipolar is linked to childhood trauma.
And when did you get diagnosed for 9 years ago?
Yeah, quite recently.
And how has that helped your comedy? How has that helped you in comedy?
It's helped me in life because I now understand that, like, I get very excitable and I get very frustrated, and I'm extreme. People see me. Someone sees me at their worst and someone sees me at their best. They'll describe two completely different people. Because I'm very excitable. You've seen how I am, and I love life. When I love life, I love it.
Yes.
My highs, even on my mood stabilizers, I'm on two different types of mood stabilizers. Even on them, my highs are still higher than most people. So it's helped me to understand myself a bit more, and I realize now I shouldn't be so. I don't know. I shouldn't be so hard on myself. But this is the problem. If you start saying I shouldn't be so hard on myself, then that gives you free reign to do what you want. Oh, I'm allowed to be like this. I'm allowed. People say, "Oh, I'm like that because of this." You go, okay, but you can still control what you do. You're still responsible for your actions. People go. I mean, I was at a comedy club and this woman got tapped on the shoulder. Can you stop talking, please? She went, oh, yeah, okay. 10 minutes later, she was talking, and the boss went, "Can you stop talking, please?" She went, "Excuse me, I've got ADHD." And it's like, oh, something you would never be diagnosed with 10 years ago. So now she's got this excuse to behave badly. Like, you're being insensitive to my neurodiversity. You can stop talking. If the Queen was doing a speech and you were at a dinner party, you'd shut up, wouldn't you? Right?
Yeah.
So, So I think that I don't want to make excuses and go, oh, that's why I'm like that. But at least I can understand why I'm like it. I get very excited, get very low sometimes. My highs, I didn't, I don't know what it's like to be anybody else. No one does, right? So I only know what I feel when I get high, as in a natural high. I can't know if it feels better than yours. But now I understand that it probably does feel better than most, but my lows feel worse than most. So it's a balance, and I accept that. I accept the trade-off.
I mean, that's the thing. I want to bring our attention back to this book because when you told me I mean, tell me again, how long did it take you to finish writing this book?
Not that long, just under 8 months.
And would you say, I mean, that means you have to be ultra focused, out, like you have to concentrate, you have to be on this time. I'm speaking from someone who's now publishing like my first book, and it took me 6 years, you know. And there's a lot of, I mean, there are different ways of working, but it just goes to show how it helps you be hyper focused. Or is that something that I'm assuming wrong? Like, is that just your personality trait
Yes,
that has nothing to do with bipolar?
Sorry, I have an obsessive nature. So as of Monday last week, I'm on a diet because I put on some weight. I'm into fitness, and I'm seeing changes on my stomach. 2 days in, I saw a little bit of change, and now 8 days in, I've seen a lot of change. And now that I've got the bug for that, it's like there was a bowl of crisps on the table the other day. I didn't have one crisp. I didn't touch one crisp on the table. That I don't have.
Are you an all or nothing person?
Absolutely.
Right. I know how. I think a lot of people can relate to that, but probably to different degrees. Like it's almost like a perfectionist streak as well, right? Because if I touch it, that means I'm bad. I'm broken, like a promise to myself, and I might as well have the whole pack. You know, or I guess moderation is key, but I think most people are not moderate, especially comedians.
Right, yes. I had 2 days off. When I wrote that book, I had 2 days off writing the book in 8 months. And I would wake up in the morning, get my laptop out from the side of my bed and carry on where I left off. I wouldn't leave the bed probably an hour and a half before the morning because I was so absorbed.
So you wake up and you wake up writing, like you wake up and you start writing.
The best time to do it.
And then what happens? You go have lunch, and then you continue writing.
Yeah.
Throughout the day.
I also would go running and have it playing on my headphones. Yeah. And there's accessibility mode for partially sighted or blind people. So I'd have it on accessibility mode. I have the book being played to me while I'm running, listen to the book while I'm running to make changes. And then I'd play it in car journeys. Any journey over half an hour, I had it playing, talking to me as the book. And I would make mental notes for changes. And then I do memory games to make mental notes. So my record was 19. I got 18 of 19 points. So if the first point is to change a joke about a car, and the second point is to change, not a joke, a line about a car, and the second one's about a elephant, then I just imagine an elephant turning over a car. And that's a strong image. And the next image will be a pair of glasses. And so there's an elephant wearing glasses turning over the car, and that will give me a story, and then I'll be able to pull over the service stations after 2 hours, and then I just write down all the things. My short-term memory is awful, absolutely awful. But if you do those memory games, they'll stay with you for a couple of hours, and you go, right, elephant turning over a car, and wearing glasses at a bus stop, and then you go, okay, there you go, all that image is there, and it's often a story rather than just 5 things at once. And the elephant then went to the bus stop, and then and you just. So I obsessively wrote the book, and once I get my teeth into something, I'm like a pit bull. I'm not letting go. It's like, but I love that, and it's what's allowed me to become a comedian full time so quickly, because I lived and breathed comedy. People used to make fun of me. You know, oh, haven't got a life. I did have a life. I just put it on hold until I got good enough to do comedy full time. You know, I stopped listening to music when I started. You know, I love.
Did you? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to backtrack. You mentioned accessibility and partial blind.
Yeah, there's a thing on an iPhone in the settings called accessibility.
Okay, so, but you're not partially blind.
No. So I use.
Okay.
So what they do is they can put their fingers down the screen and it reads them. Yeah.
So I put it on. So you're having it read it back to you. I sometimes accidentally fumble onto that function. So what you're saying is that, I mean, that is your process, and it's very intense. It's not what I think a lot of people would go through, but it's almost like you're channeling, and you are having your antennas up, and you are putting yourself in this mode of producing and working and fine-tuning. And I just wonder, in terms of the craft of comedy, where, you know, I mean, I feel like in a way having that kind of personality has served you, because that has helped you to produce this book in such a short amount of time. And also to put yourself out there, to be on stage, to want the applause, to say, and to feel that adrenaline, right? That hit of dopamine, like when people love you on stage and it gives you more positive feedback, and then you're chasing that more. Am I right to say that that is a little bit of that cycle of like kind of the validation as well, and to go like that helps you to want to better your craft?
Well, yeah, it's also not being left alone with your own thoughts for too long. So when I talked about not liking long car journeys, because I've got my thoughts, I'm stuck with my thoughts. When I'm writing, when I'm being creative, I find it easier to write a book than to read a book, because I'm more connected with my brain. If my brain's there's more going on. If I'm going, what do I want to say? Reading is a lot easier than write. It's easier to read a book than to write a book, right? So for me,
Absolutely. Yes.
the
Yes.
intensity
Yes.
of putting it down is far more exciting than taking. And I suppose my brain's probably better set on transmit than receive, which is a flaw in me, as well. But the thing is, if I'm left alone with my thoughts for too long, then I might get sad. So if I keep myself busy, the thrill of going backstage, getting the buzz, going on stage for an hour at a festival, talking for an hour, and then coming off with that buzz, you go, that's my happy place. I'm at my happiest, on stage. I mean, when I'm with my children who I don't live with and I'm having fun with them, that's the best. But individually, the happiest place for me is being on stage. Yeah. And the second
So
happiest,
then what I would, sorry, can you say that again?
my second happiest place was writing the book.
Because you're so in the moment. And that's what I realized, like, because when you're on stage, that is where you have to be present. Like, you can't be anywhere else. Like what you said, lots of people are looking at you. And for some reason, you writing the book as well is making you being in the moment with yourself and, being able to engage with yourself. But I really wonder what happens. And I'm talking about that because it happened to me as well. Like when you get off stage, right? And you've had the moment of high, like I find like I have to take magnesium to even try and sleep. I try not to take too many like melatonins, but I try and take magnesium pills to like chill out, because the shows at night has a lot of adrenaline pumping. I'm trying to get to bed. I can't. And it's almost like you're not in a state of anxiety, but having so much adrenaline in your body and then trying to get to bed, at least for myself, I find that it's quite difficult. How do you feel after?
A good gig I buzz for an hour afterwards. An average gig I buzz for 2 minutes. But my medication knocks me out. I'm very lucky. One of my two medications knocks me out. You get about half an hour before you get drowsy. If you have a couple of drinks as well.
So basically, you have much stronger medication than I try and have like a supplement, but then you just like let's just not waste any time. Let's just like just go for it, knock yourself out.
It's not a choice though. It's not a choice. It's a fortune. It's a fortunate situation. I'm very lucky that one of my pills helps me sleep. I mean, boom. I would never take the pill and drive a car any time afterwards, because the clock's ticking. Half an hour, great. So I sleep.
Do you think that comedy has helped you in your self-healing journey? Do you think writing? Do you think any of you connecting with people, like? Because obviously, we know comedians, we have got at least something that we're dealing with, whether we're in the journey of like unraveling it, it's a continuous process. But has it helped you kind of find yourself in a way? I hate to say it because it sounds really cliche, like find yourself like Nemo. But I mean, at least help you get in touch with who you really are, or who you want to show people you are.
Well, I started quite young. I was 23 and 5 days old when I started. So I did my growing as a person while I was already a comedian. So I don't think I found out who I was because of comedy, because I can't know. Because I was, if I started doing comedy at 40 and then went, I think I've learned to know myself, that would obviously be the comedy helping. But I don't know, because I was doing it the whole time.
Yeah.
But I do think it's made me more confident, having any form of success. I was getting on TV 2.5 years in. You get people coming up to you in the street and saying, I thought you were great on that show. That gives you confidence, definitely. I have no problem with confidence. You know, I don't walk in the room with people and worry about how they're going to perceive me because I know who I am and I'm confident who I am. Being funny on stage every night, whatever, 2 to 5 nights a week, it keeps your self-esteem up because you go, I can talk to people. I do it every day. You know, the master classes I do, I walk into a room in a different country. There's 12 people sitting there at the table. I'm not nervous one single bit. Not one. There's no preparation. I walk in the room, say hello, sit down, we start. I'm not even. There's no. Okay, we're going in. Not the slightest. Because I've got something that they want as well, right? I've written a book they want to listen to me talk about. So why would I lack confidence in that situation? You might go, yeah, but what if they ask you questions you can't answer them? Then I'll be honest and say I can't answer them. I'm not a god. I'm a bloke who's written a book. So therefore, well, people ask me quite complicated questions, and I go, I've never thought about that before. I think about it. I give the best answer I can. But my point is, because I know the thing I know more about in the world than anyone else is my own book because I wrote it. So if you're going to talk to me about my book, of course I'm confident because I'm proud of it. So when I walk into a dinner party and there's someone asking me what do I think about the Israel situation at the moment, I'm now feeling really pressured because I'm a little ignorant because I don't know as much as they do. So I'm more comfortable on stage in front of 2,000 strangers than I am in front of a man on a plane sitting next to me who asks me questions about topics I don't want to talk about.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And, you know, it's interesting how you talk about, I guess, being confident in your own essence and kind of like you've grown up with being like doing this. This is your lane, right? This is what you've done and this is what you know and this is all you know and this is who you are. And I guess when you said that, that really makes a lot of sense because I've discovered it as someone literally turning 40, who's turned 40, you know, in my 40s doing this. So that it's different for me. My journey is like, wow, I've been in entertainment, I've been in doing the presenting stuff, but like comedy and showing yourself, it's like peeling back another layer. And you know, and not everybody, like it's so natural to you because you've been doing that, but a lot of us would have to do jobs that we don't really like. You know, I've done office jobs or being, you know, playing different types of games, having to wear those masks. And I feel like the general population, a lot of people have to do that to survive, make ends meet. And you might have shitty colleagues, shitty boss, you know, toxic things happening in your life where you don't really have a lot of control over. And you still have to posture, you still have to pretend to be whatever a version that is kind of kosher for them, to the point where you start to lose yourself. A lot of people start losing their identity and it happens slowly and quite insidiously, right? And so for me, stepping out of that and then getting into comedy took a while to find my voice. I mean, when I first went on stage, I was like, what do I do? Who am I? What am I going to say? And I was so nervous. And then I thought, I'm just going to talk about all the embarrassing stuff, right? There was like, I didn't know where the boundary was, but it was more the fear of being seen, you know? And I feel like what comedy has done for me is kind of given me back my power because, as a woman, we go through different cycles and I became a mom, then I put everybody's needs before mine. And then just to even have the time where I'm stepping out of the house to get to a club was so alien to say, I'm not at home, I'm out here. Oh my God, I get to do this. And it's almost like a treat to find myself and to become myself. So for me, it means a lot. It's quite different from your journey, obviously. But it kind of is the same thing where you are finding a place in the world and also finding a place where people are listening to your voice. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, it doesn't matter what you've been through in life, but everybody's looking for the same thing, the validation, the need to be heard, the need to be seen, the need to also be liked. Because you're right. You said, when they give you an applause, you're feeling like, wow, this is amazing. And I love it. I'm not sure, is it because I'm a comedian who, I'm a person with some kind of dysfunction and therefore I crave it more, and because obviously I had some issues growing up. I mean, massively, I grew up without a father. My mother had this really dramatic escape story from my dad. He's Lebanese. She always told us when we were little kids, remember seeing him and then suddenly we didn't. And, she had to escape from Abu Dhabi in a getaway car. He had our passports, she's Chinese, Singaporean. At that time, it was like, a man could stop the whole plane if his wife and children were in it. It was very dramatic. And I grew up with a lot of that chaos. I might not have the language at that age, but I grew up with a lot of chaos. Like, it was just like we were trapped in the car for 2-3 hours because men could just lock women and children in the car because they can't go anywhere, right? It's like the early 80s, late, like, that sort of environment in the Arab world. So I'm very glad I came back to Singapore, but I just really wonder, a lot of that childhood imprint of it. We don't have the language to say what it feels like, but we have the feeling of being like having the rug pulled under our feet, not having stability. And then also having, I think, the added resilience, like having to make everything okay because you have to accept that things are just the way it is. Like, you just don't have a dad. Like, you just can't have him around, and then being okay with that, and then making fun of that in a way, just kind of like not making light of it, but it's almost as if it has become something that has no power over you anymore because you grew up with dysfunction from the start. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's what makes a comedian have like a bit, maybe a bit more of a tough skin.
Yeah, I think that whatever it is, most comedians have got, not all comedians, but I think a lot of comedians have had something weird going on in their childhood that, like I said, it's dented them. But I think it makes you see the world differently. And I think, like, Woody Allen said, people are born funny. Some people are born funny. They were born. I shouldn't be quoting him, should I?
Of course you should, but I guess maybe.
Quoted him in my book, and someone gave it a 4-star review and said the reason I'm not giving a 5-star review is because he's quoted. So he's taken 1 star off.
Oh no!
I was a funny kid, and the thing is, I was the kid in the class that made everyone laugh all the time. So that there was something different going on. But there could be another kid who thinks funny things and doesn't say it. The extrovert will say it. My ex, the mother of my children, would whisper something funny to me at a dinner party that she thought. I'd be saying that, but she'll just whisper it because she doesn't want the attention. I'm like, I got an idea. The thing is, I know we're going off the topic slightly, but it's a celebration of an idea. If you've got an idea that's going to make people laugh, why shouldn't you share it? Because you can see your little baby be born and make everyone around them happy. So, but going back to the dented thing, I think that I'm not a psychologist, but I think a dysfunctional child definitely helps. Yes, it gravitates. These weird people gravitate, and they're in this dressing room. All these dysfunctional people going on stage to get the thing they need to make their day feel good. I don't think you shouldn't need the validation of strangers, but my God, it feels good.
I think an interesting thing is that the more dysfunction that you have, it's like the better it is because it's the better it is for your comedy. The more fucked up things are. That we can laugh about. It's like we can gather together as a tribe and go, yeah, that's funny. You have, I don't know, you're limping around with, I don't know, the third foot growing out of your ass, whatever. But it's good for comedy. It's good if you wanted to take your issues to everybody and share that. And do you see that in your peers? Do you see that, or are we?
I mean, there's one comedian who lost his dad when he was young, and I watch him and I think, I think you're craving the adoration that you missed. I do think that, and maybe it's the same for you. I don't know, but I haven't seen you perform. But when I watch him, there's a neediness. And it's like you've got to prove that, because when you show your dad what you've done, you go, look, Dad, I made this at school, and they go, well done. If you've got one parent not doing that, I mean, you're still getting it from your mum, though, aren't you? You're still getting it from your mum.
Yeah.
But maybe one's not enough. Maybe we need 2.
But that's the thing. Like, so I was raised by my grandmother, and then I had my uncles around, and like it's a community kind of a vibe, So I feel like sometimes that mom dad thing, I never really felt like you don't really miss what you don't have. That's the thing. And there are other people in the community that can fill those shoes. And sometimes it's better that they fill those shoes if someone that you're missing can't actually be the right kind of influence in your life. So I've never felt a lack, but I'm not sure whether I'm so deep in denial that I can't see it.
No, but how old were you when how old were you when you last saw your dad?
Oh, I think maybe like not even
Yeah,
3.
yeah. I'm talking about maybe it was eight or nine. So he did get used to it, and then it was taken away.
Yeah,
And if you're used to
yeah,
it,
perhaps. And you can, nobody experiences, like, even if you had a sibling, you wouldn't be experiencing your mom and dad in the same way, right? Because they'll be different. To no two families are alike, and even if you have the same parents, you don't have the same experience. You don't turn out the same way. People are just so complex, right? And I think what's interesting is it's like, how much of it do we want to share with others to say, this is happening, or this is happening. And actually, nobody really has like a normal like family. Like 82% of the world, I think there's a study done, it's like a podcast as well, that the 82% love differently. They come in, like, families come in different shapes and sizes and different stuff, different types of, I guess, it's not your nuclear family, mom, dad, and kids. And if you have that, that's great, but majority of people don't have that. And I think that's where the relatability comes in. When you're like, here, let me tell you a bit about my family, and then they're like, haha, they're laughing at it because they can relate to it.
okay, is that what you
Do
do?
you think that's true?
Well, I don't know. I don't.
To a certain extent, yes. But I guess it's just about like personal experience of growing up. Um, you know,
I don't do
and
anything relatable. My comedy's not relatable. I present ideas to you that you laugh at. There's two types of laughs. There's recognition and surprise, and I work on surprise. So people aren't laughing at me going, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, I've been there. Oh, yeah, I think
mm,
that. They're going, God, this guy thinks
mm,
differently. I'm laughing at his perspective. So it's not, I don't do relatable comedy. I like it.
mm,
I just don't do it.
mm,
Um, I love watching a good observational comedian who really pinpoints the detail in life, and you go, oh yeah, but I don't do that.
mm,
Do you talk about your dysfunctional
mm.
childhood? On stage?
I do. I talk about I make like I'll do like an accent, like my mom in this Cantonese accent, but then she doesn't really like, I'll kind of like exaggerate, and then my dad in this like Arabic, like in speak Arabic kind of thing. So then I'll do like accents, and I will do I'll make like caricatures of them. It's just
Talk
so,
about being locked.
you
You
know.
talk about being locked in a car or him taking your passport off.
No, not about that specifically, but maybe them having a fight over like a very mundane thing about like maybe passing the pepper, and then it turns into a shouting match. But then one is shouting like in Arabic and in a certain like, way. I'm depicting him, very stereotypical way. And then my mom in this like Cantonese, almost going into like a techno song, like the way that the beat of Cantonese, the way they speak. And it's like, yeah. And I would do that to make fun of the culture of both cultures, because I'm from both cultures, so I'll make fun of the cultures, and I'll make like, a stereotype of these people. And I can do it. I can be offensive because I have the DNA, I've got the genetic makeup of it. And I think people shouldn't take themselves so seriously, right? They should be able to laugh at, like, yeah, where they're from, the quirks of the culture. And I think I'm still finding my voice in comedy. It's a very early journey for me.
How long have you
I've
been?
maybe clocked, not long, like I maybe done my 10th stand up.
Oh wow! Oh wow! I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't realize you were that green. Wow.
Yeah, very, very, very. It's all very new. And and that's why it feels very, when every time I come up on stage, I'm like, how much do I say that's about? Like I talked about my colonoscopy, and I talked about like, having 2 polyps removed, and like in my esophagus. And I went on stage to share that on the day after I had my procedure, and I haven't even told my mom I had polyps removed. And I went on stage, and I written this set, and told like strangers, and then I realized I haven't even told like my mom about this, right? And then so it's yeah, it's kind of like a journey of discovery of how much do you share, do you overshare, where are the boundaries, what are the boundaries, and then why am I doing this? Sometimes I get that moment of panic. Why? And then
Yeah, but it's great you can make. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't talk about my mental health on stage until this year. Maybe 3 months ago, went to do some new material, I honed it and honed it and honed it for Edinburgh. It was all leading up to the Edinburgh show, and it felt great. There's maybe 3 minutes of my show, maybe 4 minutes is about my mental health, and it felt great because I made it very funny. It's not a sad bit. I made it all funny, and it's great because you go, well, I'm celebrating this now, and I'm turning a problem into art is a wonderful thing. You know, Doug Stanhope has got a routine about assisting his mum's suicide with pills.
It sounds tragic.
Yeah, he made it funny. He made it very funny.
Do you mind sharing your bit? Do you mind sharing a bit about how you frame?
I can't really say it one-on-one because it's quite emotional and passionate. But I talk about. I have a routine about OCD, how I count things, and then I do a bit about comedians because antidepressants. I know a lot of people on antidepressants, and I said my industry is rife with people on antidepressants. I've actually lost count of the amount of comedians I know on antidepressants, and that's not easy for me to do. And then I go. In fact, you know what comedy is? Comedy is someone on antidepressants trying to cheer up a room full of people who already have.
It's quite funny,
isn't it?
Yeah,
I do, but that's not about me. That's not the stuff about me. Is I would feel strange doing it one-on-one, but I do. It's hard to do material one-on-one like this. But the counting, I'm merging the counting obsession as well with the. So there are lots of callbacks when I'm referencing counting. But let me think of one line. No, it's too English. You don't even know the phrase I'm going to use. It's too many. There's too many hurdles here. I got one-on-one English phrases, callbacks to jokes.
It's all right.
It's a nightmare. But
now you're scripting like an entire scene now that's happening.
But there's one line's brutal. I said that the worst type of low is when you don't know why you're low, and if there's that because you can't solve it. And if that happens to you, do what I do: get a pen and paper and make a list of everyone who would be devastated if you weren't around. And if you look at that list and there are fewer than 3 people on it, I think we found the problem.
Oh dear.
Then I say, I'm only joking. I can guarantee you that there will be at least 20 people on that list you don't know about. And I said, the trouble is it's not to our funeral that the nicest things are said about us. So we should say nice things to each other now. And I get a couple in the front row and I put the microphone in their mouth and I'd say something nice to him he's never heard. And so I make it beautiful very quickly because that's a brutal line. There are fewer than 3 people who found the problem. And that's not about my mental health. That's turning on you, the audience, right? But that's what's such a powerful moment because I'm going, these are my problems. I'm coping with them. These are my problems. And if you have a similar problem to me, do this. And I've slapped you on the face at the last bit and gone, I think we found the problem. I could never leave it on that. I then tidy up and go, no, I can guarantee there'll be 20 people who you don't know should be on that list. Because I'm not going to tell a depressed person that no one likes them.
Yeah. And you don't know who has been there, wanting to off themselves or have already tried, or like this might be triggering, or like there's so many situations where, you acknowledge it and then the people think, okay, well, let's talk about something very difficult. But then actually you're able to kind of bring something positive to it, which I think and to do it in comedy, that's an art, that's a craft, in the writing, in the performing, in taking something that's very sensitive. I for myself, I'm just thinking, wow, people only want to hear something that is truly deeply personal. Like for example, I'm a hypochondriac. I have like Googled symptoms. I have like gone for so many tests, I feel like I need to do a piece on it too. And I'm like literally diagnosing my mom, she tells me something about bowels. I'm like, this is a symptom, but I think the world is making us more anxious. The world, when you have the internet, when you can look for information, when things become unfiltered, we have not processed information like that before.
I've never Googled a symptom before, though. I've never.
Wow. Okay.
I've
So
never
we're just different people. And my algorithm, I did a joke where, because I was doing my colonoscopy, I literally had an algorithm where I was just seeing people going like, the title was like, I thought it was stomach ache, but it turned out to be for stage 4, like stomach cancer. I thought it was, yeah, just bad bloating, but it's ovarian cancer. I
Oh my
literally
god!
was getting like that in
Oh my
my
god!
feed, like just people getting cancer. And then it made me freak out, right? Then I obviously then had to go and get all sorts of like different tests. That's why I went for my colonoscopy. But and when I went to see the doctor, he was like, okay, well, if we're sticking the camera there, we might as well do it there, like down the throat, and just check your stomach, And I'm like, yes, okay, let's do it. But that's the kind of person I was. I just wanted to. I kind of just like I'm anxious about it. I'm hypochondriac, and I'm like, I'm not going to be in denial and go, everything's fine, everything's fine. I'm the kind of person that I want to investigate. I want to find out. I want to know. And then I just go all the way. And it was good because I found out I had like 3 polyps, like 2 in my colon, 1 in my esophagus, which I wouldn't have found if he didn't say you needed to do that test. And I already done a scope in the stomach 6 years ago. So I told him, we don't need to do it. I've done it before. And he goes, that's 6 years ago. If it's anything longer than 5 years, you should do one. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And I had my husband's corporate insurance. So that's why I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it all. Let's
Right.
put it on the corporate insurance.
Right.
And it was good to be prudent. It was good to be cautious. The polyps were very, very small. You just have to remove it and that's fine. So there's nothing like scary going on with it. So as long as you remove it, there's no chance of anything. Well, you can't ever say 100%, but what I'm trying to say is there's so many things that plague us as a society, like just having all these things that we have to worry about on top of, getting our family together, worrying about kids, worrying about this and that and everything. And so I think comedy for me is a way of just laughing at myself, at the absurdity of, I know it's absurd. I know what I'm mulling over. I know it's ridiculous, but I can't help it. I can't control myself. I literally can't, and so then I feel like when I talk about it, then I'm less ashamed of it. And then I feel less trapped. Like then it doesn't control me or doesn't make me feel like I've out myself,
Sure.
like nobody else cannot. That's how I look at it.
I struggle thinking about things like this. You see, that's why I've gone quiet, because I start to go, what's the point of life if we're all going to get ill? So
But the children, right? The children keeps you kind of like, no, I must be healthy. I need to, I know you have got 2 girls, I've got 2 boys, and it's like, I need to be as healthy as I can.
No.
To make sure.
Of course. But my point is, where I go low is when I think like, you're trying to live your life, you're trying to do, you're trying to earn enough money to pay for everything you need. You're trying to sleep well. You're trying to deal with your own problems that will come and go throughout the day or a week or a year. And then when I hear people talk about things like cancer, I go, well, what's the point? What's the point? Oscar Wilde's got my favorite quote ever. I don't know if he's known in Singapore, is he?
Yeah, of course. Youth is wasted on the young.
I don't know who's known where. But my favorite quote of his is, we're all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars.
Yeah, I know that quote.
It's great, isn't it?
Yes, it's perspective. Yes,
it's lovely. Life is
wonderful,
but it's wonderful if you look at the right areas of it. And but life, when I think about, if I think too much about bad things happening in the world, I go, what's the point? So when I hear about someone talking about, yes, there's a happy ending to your stories, but then I think about it like, oh yeah, what is it? 1 in 2 people get cancer at some point in their life. Is that right? It's ridiculously high. So then I start to go, oh yeah, life's pointless. What's the point of trying? Yeah, so that's when I get low. So when I hear a tune I like, I go, life's amazing. Or I eat some food. I go to the supermarket, I bought some sushi. I was sitting in the park with a friend, I ate the sushi, I go, drink. Oh, aren't we lucky? The flavours on our tongue. And then someone goes, oh yeah, my nan's got cancer. I'm like, what's the point? So, that's why I went quiet, because I kind of, I have to keep reminding myself of the good things to keep me up. Otherwise I go crashing.
Yeah.
That's we all get sad. Of course we all get sad. But I kind of go, everything's, there's a joke in the show that I said, there's a phrase, I can do the first half of the joke, but I'd said my highs and lows are so extreme that I'll wake up in the morning and go, today I think I'll take over the world, but first I'm going to top myself.
Go on.
But that's the bit I can do. The other bit I can't do because it's a callback and an English phrase. But the point is that I kind of go. I walk out the door, the sun's out, and I'll be like, walking to the gym. Once I've done my workout, I'm going to treat myself to a nice lunch at my favorite cafe. Oh, life's amazing. I feel like I'm on holiday all the time. And then suddenly I see a news story, and I'll just go slump and just go, what's the point? What is the point of life? I mean, there's no end. There's no end, is there? There's no end product. People live and they die. They pass on people, and they live and die, and it carries on. But the moments to enjoy are the reason we're here, right? The moments to enjoy or do something good for the world. Obviously, enjoyment for yourself can be selfish, but you do something good, you make someone else happy. It's wonderful, right? But I just get really down when I think about, the end is death, and that's like, wow, what are we fighting for?
So that's really interesting because I'm a big fan of this
a big fan of death.
series. Sorry, it's people. No, I'm not. This near-death experience. So these people who have near-death experience, you can go on YouTube and you type near-death experience, and there's this collection. It's just like thousands of people sharing their stories where they've died, they've come back to life, and they literally clinically did. And a lot of their stories are very similar, how they floated out of their bodies, how they see everything. There's this very famous lady called Anita Mojani. Like, she had cancer, she was dying, and then she died, but then she came back to life. And she could, like, in that time they were working to resuscitate her, she floated out and she could see her brother coming in from like an airport, like trying to catch a flight. She could see everything. She described, and this was like in her book, where everything she had described, even what the nurses had said about her and what the doctor responded, where all her family's members were, and that time she was clinically dead. And everything she said was 100% like it was proven. It had been, double trip, like all of it had been confirmed and verified. And people have been on the other side, and I choose to believe these stories because I've watched, like, so then I'm on that algorithm as well. I've watched so many, like, person who get electrocuted, people who like literally drown in a kayak, and when they've been resuscitated, like what they've seen when their souls left their bodies and what they were able to access. And most of them, they do see a white light, they do gravitate towards a white light, but it's not always Jesus, it's not always that guy with a beard. It's loving source, it's entities or spirits of their ancestors and people who had loved them, even spirits of their dogs that had passed. Even a woman losing her child, could be a miscarriage of, maybe stillbirth. They feel the spirit, they see, these entities. And I choose to believe that because when you see the overwhelming evidence of how many interviews have been done, and you just type near-death experiences on YouTube, like, there's no way these people are all kind of gathering to say, let's make up a story about this and let's just like corroborate, because so many of their family members, and then they do get better. It's almost like they've been onto the other side. This lady basically rid herself of cancer. She came back, and she had like this crazy, like she should have been dead, but she came back to life and the cancer disappeared. It disappeared. It's just in her book. She's called Anita Mojani. She's not the only one that it has happened. So I feel like there is something on the other side. I think I've been to many different kind of, I've journeyed into like, different cultures, temples. I filmed in archaeological sites. I've been a travel presenter. I've seen like drawings, ancient drawings, and I've seen like religions clash with each other where you can see they're fighting for different lands. This was in China next to like Xinjiang with they've traditionally always fought over this land in the far west. But the point is that people express God in the way that they understand. And I feel like no one has a monopoly over who God is and what the divine is. And I do believe there's something. And I do. And even somebody who was in a plane accident, it was one of the few people that didn't burn to death. It's very grim, but he saw light leaving people's bodies. He saw light just leaving people's bodies. So like, you can go and argue like, okay, they're just hallucinating. You can choose not to believe, but I think, when the evidence is so overwhelming, and I choose to believe that there is something more. I choose to believe that there is something on the other side, that we get to choose to say, that you get to choose to be in this. I know this is going way off tangent. This is not what I intended to talk about.
I've got a question though. Why does it take several people on a plane to die at once for there to be light coming off somebody? Why doesn't it happen when anyone?
I think what that was, that one person saw, that he happened to see the souls leaving people's bodies when those that were burning, that he could see. So he escaped.
No. What I'm saying is, why did it take a lot of people dying at once for someone to see a soul leaving a body? Why don't we see it whenever?
I have no idea. I don't know. It may not. It may be because that person was so close to death himself that he had the vision to see.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
he was on the plane himself, so he didn't die. Yeah, but so he was also on the podcast, near-death experiences. So what is it? I have no idea why I'm talking about this, but this is where I feel like there is hope. There is something more than, it's not just because, okay, we're going to reincarnate and then we're going to have more life. But I feel like that our job is to figure out what our soul's purpose is, and your soul has chosen to come in. Like my soul has chosen to come in this person, but that's not 100%. That's not 100% who I am, right? This is a character that I'm playing, but we are more than that, and that's my belief. Yeah.
So you're not scared of death?
Oh, I am so afraid of dying. I'm so afraid of this person that I am. There's like a separate, like there's a super conscious, right? And then like your subconscious, but this character that I am with the quirks that I have, yeah, I'm completely afraid. But sometimes when I access, or I'm aligned with who I am inside, that is the seed of my soul, that is not this character, then I'm not. But when I'm not, and I'm just this character, then I am afraid, That's how I frame it, to understand it, and also to be kind to myself, because it's a lot, life, it's a lot, and I love the internet for what it gives us, the power of information, the power of accessing so many different things, which can be detrimental to our mental health. But some of it is good.
Stop Googling them.
I know now that I did my stand up, and I did my and I was cleared, my algorithm has literally changed. I was going through a dark period at one point, but after I did that stand up, and also after when I did all my checks, then in a weird way, when I watch those videos, I'm like, I know I'm fine because I did my checks. At least I'm fine, it's, yeah.
I'm like an optimist, so I'll get like a massive lump growing out my head. I'll be like, oh yeah, that's just a teenage spot, just a delayed teenage spot.
Oh, yeah.
That's all the teenage spots left coming in one go. I get like a foot going up my cheek, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that must have been a hallucination from the acid I took in the 90s. So yeah, whatever happens to me, so I live in quite a dream childlike world. That's when the bad stuff hits me. I shut down because I'm pretending everything's fine. And I like to pretend everything's fine.
That's coping mechanism, isn't it? We all cope differently. Yeah. Like we find ways to make sense of the world. We find ways to, yeah. The thing I was watching is called NDE Diary, if you're interested. Don't know why. NDE, Near Death Experience Diary.
Oh right.
NDE, yeah. It's where I go to at night. Sometimes you're just like, oh, I just listened to this. Oh, that's gonna put me to sleep. Or what are some of your favorite things?
I just listen to music. I don't really listen to podcasts.
No, you don't.
I mean,
is it too much talking?
There's a podcast called the Comedian Podcast. It's a friend of mine called Stuart Goldsmith, and he's hundreds of episodes, and that's quite nice. I listen to a comedian who I had never heard of before. So I spend a whole hour in the car listening to this American comedian, and then I'll be very excited to Google it when I get home to see if I like what they do. It's really nice hearing the intelligent person talking about their art differently to how I think about it, and then seeing what they do and going, oh, okay, that's the mind behind that. You know, it's like hearing the director's commentary before watching the film almost. But I'm not a big. I like music. Cool. I like listen. 90s hip hop. That's my
100% down with that. That is my go-to cleaning music. I love the hip hop. Yeah. I grew up with it.
That's the side you're not into.
I love the
hip hop. I'm a big fan of his music.
I am a huge 90s hip hop fan. Okay. I grew up dancing on like in different clubs when I was like a teenager to 90s hip hop in Singapore. So like definitely. But yeah, no. Listen, thank you so much for your time. It's been so good speaking with you, and thank you for being so candid and also open to, you know, this conversation and these ideas.
I'm not capable of not being candid. I can't not be candid. But yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm sorry we tangented. But you know what? If two people are having a conversation, it doesn't have to be all about one topic, does it?
No, I don't think so. I think that's not what real life is, right? I mean, or like there's a curated part of life, but then our experience of like so many different things informs us about who we are and what choices we make and the different, you know, I haven't even talked to you about family, you know, because I think that's a huge thing, like, you know, being a parent and then not being a parent and then like being a comedian, having that work. I'm not sure what.
Being away from young children, when you're a comedian, you're being away from young children. Like I missed my second daughter's first steps because I was away working.
Wow.
And but then again, you know, if in a traditional mum staying at home on maternity leave, the dad's working, statistically he's not going to be there anyway. He's away for 8 hours a day anyway. So
yeah.
You could say you're going to miss their first steps because you're in the office, right? So
yeah.
But it's the chunk of being away and going, you know. Being away for a week when your child's 18 months old is not. But you got to earn the money.
I guess, you know, yeah, you got to do what you got to do, right? And there's like a million and one things we can feel guilty about, or like nitpick, or make ourselves, you know, or judge ourselves, you know. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to do the best, you know. I guess, and it's just like parenting is not perfection, and I just find myself like there's a million and one things I've done, and I'm like, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. Oh shit, I could have done that. Oh shit. It's relentless, you know. That's why some people turn to drinking. It's like shut that voice in your head. I've stopped drinking, by the way. So, you know, I didn't want to relax. I'm not like I'm a massive drinker, but I just feel like I don't even want to have like 2-3 glasses of wine to help me to unwind. Like I didn't want that to be in that state, that I needed something to help me, I guess. And yeah, and it just made me feel itchy anyways. So I was kind of like slightly allergic to alcohol. So, you know, but it's a tough gig.
Greatest joy that life can give you though, right?
Yeah, it's a tough gig, but it's worth it. I mean, it's definitely the biggest achievement in my life. Like, you know, I've been traveling all over China. I've done my travel shows. I've done, you know, whatever stuff, but nothing beats just like being at home with your child and having that. They're so genuine and they're so amazing because they want nothing from you but just your presence, you know, and it's just so beautiful.
Wait till they're 12 and 14.
They'll be starting to ask for like iPhones. Yeah. Now it's just a fake phone. Now they just talk to me on their like big, yeah. Like, you know. Yeah.
Stop saving up the phone when they want a real one.
I don't want to get to that point. I will say no to social media until they're 18.
Really? Are you serious?
Yeah. No to like they can't have social media until they're 18.
Wow.
Why would they? Why would they be allowed? I mean, now they're 6 and 4. Okay, so that hasn't come yet quite for me.
My 14-year-old's on TikTok, but she puts games up. She puts games up of her playing games, but yeah, I think it's different.
But she's not. Yeah, I don't know, but I just feel like the longer I don't know whether I'll be successful, but I feel like I never grew up with social media, and like it's so tough being a girl. You know, having like I've had a myriad of like eating disorders, you know, just like being a girl, right? Just existing, just trying to fit in. And I can't imagine what it's like growing up on social media, having people to
They're not,
comment about
she's not
stuff
watching that
offline.
stuff. She's just uploading games. She's not. She's not.
Ah, right.
She's not.
Yeah.
She's not.
Not having a profile,
No.
not having a profile, not having, yeah, that stuff. I think that stuff as an adult is already hard to navigate that,
Mhm.
you know, let alone being like an adolescent and having people like just dealing with an extra layer of,
Well, you talk about
I
mental
couldn't,
health.
I
You talk
couldn't,
about mental health. What about the
yeah,
mental health of maybe teenage girl who doesn't think she looks pretty enough?
yeah, yeah. Well, it's hard. Like I've been through it, you know, it's fucked up. I ended up in the hospital. Like I just, you know, there's
No,
one thing
this
about,
is your this is your I thought you meant reading about other people's problem. You have.
no, it was my problem. Yeah, massively. I mean, just as a girl, like, and I didn't grow up with social media at that time, you know, but I grew up like just like any other girl. Like, I think if you threw a stone at any girl, it will be varying degrees of eating disorders. And those who tell you that they don't really have are like an anomaly. Most would have to some degree, not full-blown anorexia. Maybe they might starve themselves a bit. Maybe they might work out a bit too much. Maybe they might take ephedrine or caffeine pills on and off just to work out. Maybe they might do a mix of, I don't know, different ways to like, you know, there's some crazy stories about girls like taking different types of pharmaceutical drugs that are available, you know, and also there've been big cases here where they almost died because, you know, you don't know what's in them, you know, and there's tons of stories out there. I think it's just it's all out there. I think girls suffer a lot, you know, and especially if they're on social media. I'm not, you know, on TikTok it's different. If it's just like you're playing a game, you're not seeing the person's face, you don't know who it is, you know. But if it's like an actual profile, I think that's where people can comment on how you look. Oh my god, it's like a microscope, um you know, and on your issues. And it's so hard to grow up to accept yourself, like as someone who's like 40-ish, 43 now, having 2 kids. I finally like come into my own. It took a long time. And then I look at skinny pictures of myself when I was young. I was hot, I was gorgeous, I looked great. But my god, I was really sick in the head because all I thought was how terrible I look, how like I just felt horrible like inside. But actually, now that I'm looking at that girl, I'm like, wow, you look great. But you know, it doesn't work like that. You know, the teenage mind, growing up, puberty, it's hard as a woman. I think it's I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in Asia as well, there are different standards. You know, especially you have to be like quite slim and skinny, and if you are fat, you really stick out. You know, I remember when I went to the UK, I put on a lot of weight. I worked there. I was doing work placement at the BBC at the World Service, and I had a great time. And then I put on a lot of weight because you eat a lot of cheese and you have a lot of like pasta and like all that stuff. I came back and my friend told me, like, you know, I was like, did you eat all of Europe? Like, you know, just put on weight. And you know, and I think it's a bit more acceptable. There's more like different shapes in sizes in Europe, but in Asia there's quite homogenous. Like there's, you know, so yeah, it would. Anyways, it's. I didn't mean for it to turn into this.
Ah,
Me, it's like talking to you, like you're my therapist.
yeah. This is supposed to be
But
about
yeah,
my
so
mental health, not yours.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just like I'm taking
It's
over.
not. I'm
My
joking.
bad.
No, I'm joking. It's supposed to be about mental health, right? So this is all.
Yeah,
I was joking. Of course, it's not
I
about
think
me.
so.
It's,
This is actually in my book.
I really, I
I
really
start.
need, I really need you to know this before I go. That was a joke. It's not about
Okay.
me. It's about us.
Like it's okay. Yeah, no, thank you, Adam. You're really good at holding space.
I
Yeah,
did a
but
podcast
this
today
is
about. I did a podcast today about mental health, and I walked away depressed.
great. We did a good job. But yeah, the start of my book was so I wrote my book and it's called Love in a Billion Chinese Chances, and it's about, you know, very much Eat, Pray, Love, set in China. Real story about me leaving an abusive relationship, found spirituality, love, travel. But the first scene in my book and is like me waking up, me in a hospital, and how I got there because I had taken these pharmaceutical drugs, and I had taken two different types, and sometimes they're like called Chinese herbs, and you have no idea what's in it. So this is when some context. This is like 20 years ago, right? And my mom had to take me to the hospital. She had no idea what happened to me. They gave me some. They gave me some charcoal pills in the end because it had already been absorbed in my body, but I had like such bad reaction. But the funny thing is, 2 cops came to my hospital bed and in the morning when I woke up and asked me if I tried to commit suicide. And in Singapore at that time, if you tried to commit suicide, it's chargeable. Like you would be charged and you would have to do time to like, it's an offense. Like you can't, now it's not, but I was shocked because that was not my intention. But the fact is that I could go into a pharmacy to pick this drug to lose weight and that drug. And of course, I'm like 19, 20. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, I'll take some of this and then I'll take some of that. And they had a bad reaction, and I was like drinking at night, like vodka, just like socializing, going out. So it was like a terrible, like comedy of errors, right? So, I think, yeah, it was pretty crazy. I've been through it. I'm glad I'm alive, but I don't think it was that bad because they didn't have to pump my stomach. But yeah, it's tough being a girl. That's all I'm saying.
Sounds like it's tough being in Singapore as well.
Yeah, I was also in the industry where, I was like modeling and doing like, I was kind of getting, it was like, it came with the industry. I was kind of being a young model. I would say definitely never get your girls into modeling, never do. I think being on stage is one thing where you're being critiqued for your art and what you're saying, but being a model or being someone where you're just kind of being critiqued for who you are fundamentally physically, right? That and a lot of what society is doing right now is like looking at girls, how they look, putting up pictures of their bums, putting up pictures of, like just, you don't have to be a model to do that, right? Everybody's doing that in different ways, And I wonder whether there'll be a backlash, whether there'll be enough of a pushback to say enough is enough, or that we realize that we're giving all this free data about ourselves. We're giving all this free reign for people to say whatever they want to say about us, Anyways.
It's an ugly thing. And social media, my daughter's not looking at other girls' fingernails on social media, but yes.
So they don't have Facebook. They don't have any.
No, they're not.
Instagram, Facebook.
No, they're not on that. But no, you can't stop. You can't stop what people choose to talk about, can you? That's the sad thing about social media. I so many people I follow put pictures of themselves up looking the best they can possibly look, and I'm like, young people. I was in a hotel and there were some people in their 20s playing pool. They spent the whole evening taking pictures of themselves, pretending they were playing pool. They weren't playing pool. I mean, they were taking pictures of themselves to show the world we're having fun playing pool. It's like, but you're not playing pool. Yeah.
Okay.
Spending the evening trying to give the impression you're having a good night to other people who don't care about you.
So the sooner we realize that the business of caring, of like, we have no business in caring what other people think about us, I think it's the sooner that we can kind of liberate ourselves.
Yeah, well, good luck.
Especially people.
Good luck trying to teach the younger generation that ethic. Because how you appear to other people has become more important than it's ever been. I don't care. Yeah. If I came into money, I wouldn't buy a nicer car because there are other things I'd rather buy in my home. So, when I had a burst of income, I did some lovely stuff to my house. I didn't buy a nicer car because I don't care what people think about me. I don't care how much you think I earn from looking at my car. I couldn't care less. I don't care about you. So I don't care about. I don't care. What I mean is, I don't care what strangers think of me. I don't know them.
Yeah.
I care about them as human beings, but I don't care. Why would I care what you think of me if I'm never going to meet you again? As in my car. I don't mean I want to be a nice person, but if I'm driving down the street, I don't care what people around me think of. Oh, he earns that much because of his car. Actually, I earn more. Well, no, roll my window down. I earn a lot more than it looks like. Who cares? Yeah. So I definitely don't suffer from that. But I think if I was 20 years old now, I'd be more likely to.
And also a lot of the bedrock of people's problems are caring what other people think of them and caring about people who don't actually really care about you, about what they think about you. So many of the problems, do you know what I mean? So many of the problems stem from that, curating that image.
I want people to like me, though. I'm sorry to interrupt. I want people to like me, though. If I meet a stranger, I want them to like me. And that's quite needy. That's quite needy.
It's innate, isn't it? It's innate to want to be liked, want to be like
Some more than others. Though.
Validated.
Yeah, but some more than
True.
others.
True. Well, Adam, I feel like we could speak for hours, and I don't want to take up any more of your time
Oh, thank you.
because I would just tell you all my secrets. I don't know how you do it, but I will just
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
truth-telling pill. Yeah, thank you for sharing your time. Good luck with your journey and keep us posted. What's the next thing that's happening now that you're actually having a break?
I'm having a little break, but then I'm going to do master classes in 3 more in England, and then 2 in Switzerland, and penciled, believe it or not, 2 in Lapland.
Oh, Lapland.
Yeah,
Wow. That's Father Christmas. I
it
thought
is.
you said you're coming back to Singapore.
Yeah, I'd love to come back to
Wow.
Singapore.
Okay.
But we do 3 classes, so and there may not be enough comedians to do another 3. What do you think?
I'm sure people will be up for it. I'm sure there are heaps of people who would love to, attend your workshop to find out more about the craft. There are tons of up and coming comedians. There are lots of people signing up on open mic. So I think there's definitely bandwidth in 2025 for sure.
Well, I look forward to meeting you again then.
Yes, for sure. I will be there. And I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for being generous with your time.
Thank you for having me.